Hello there, shortcuts. This is Stephen here with video 1 for the shortcuts price list, which will go out this Wednesday, February 12th at 9 p.m. Sydney time. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email at shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Earlier today, I recorded an unboxing of a Blue Note anthology. So you'll see that in your stream if you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber and you like what you hear, please leave a comment. Nice or nasty, I don't care. And like and subscribe and all that good stuff. This is the classic rock list. The genre list will come next. Now, I knew where I had to start. It was pretty obvious. I'm wondering, before I show you the kickoff record, how many of you got this weekend? Becoming Led Zeppelin. This says, directed by Bernard McMahon, souvenir book, an access all areas journey to becoming Led Zeppelin. Yes, I went to the IMAX feature presentation of this movie at 6:30 yesterday afternoon. And this book was handed out to everyone who went in. And it's really quite sweet. It's got a little journey description of how the band got up and running. It has little biographies, starting with Bonham, which I think is a nice touch, all the way through to Robert Plant. And then a little bit of a story behind the makers of the movie and the producers. And you know what? I had a lovely time. I found it quite emotional in places. I also found it quite revelatory. The live performances that are documented in the movie are worth the price of entry alone. And to the movie's credit, they do pick a few of the key tracks and play them in all their hoary glory. I'm not going to give anything away other than to say that how sweet it was to hear John Bonham's voice and to watch the other three reacting in real time to them, hearing what potentially was an interview that they'd never heard before as well, because it was hinted that that they might not have heard. And I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it was just because it was lost in time, or who knows. But I thought there was a warmth and a beauty to the friendship that was in display that was really cool. And you know, Robert Plant's absolute sense of adventure and wanderlust continues to this time. He made me laugh so many times about his stories about being an accountant or trying to be an accountant. And John Paul Jones is just the most laconic, laid-back genius. It's just a lot of fun. I enjoyed it very, very much. So that made me think, what I might do is I just went into the crates and I pulled out all the Led Zeppelin records that I currently have. And I've got some really interesting ones. And so I'm going to quickly whiz through those. And then I'm going to flip to the other list. Now, the movie really goes into depth on Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. So this is a really nice, I think it's 1973, hard cardboard Japanese Led Zeppelin 2. But for those of you who haven't seen, this particular pressing of Led Zeppelin 2 comes with one of the most beautiful posters. I'm just going to fold this out. This is the full-length poster of Led Zeppelin 2 with the band in silhouette at the bottom in the original, what looks like the original Atlantic green. Now, I'm not sure how many countries did that poster as a feature, but the Japanese copies are beautiful. And if you don't have a good copy of Led Zepp 3 or Led Zepp 2. That is a fabulous copy. And the poster is delightful. Even my wife likes that poster, and she's tough. All right, what else do we have in the Led Zeppelin family? Now, this is something that you will have never seen before, because I only just got it. You'll recognize this album. This is Led Zeppelin 3, the famously psychedelic third trip around the Zeppelin tree. And this is the record where the full-on balls-out hard rock of Led Zepp 2, which they recorded on the road while breaking the USA, which you'll learn about in the documentary. This was their reaction to that, and this is the Japanese first press. And I was just talking about the Atlantic Green. That is the label for the Japanese first press of Led Zeppelin 3. I have never even seen one of these before. It arrived today and I was like, wow. And so, what a treat that is. If you're a Led Zepp 3 fan, look that one up. The Japanese first press. It is MT2043. I also have a really nice Japanese press of Led Zeppelin 4, sleeve and everything in beautiful condition. This is when you really get the epic nature of the band. Really, really nice copy. This is P8166A. I also have the Japanese first press of one of my favorite Led Zepp albums, In Through the Outdoor, with the cardboard bag intact and the watercolor inners still intact and ready for anyone who wants to get their water brush out. Oops, I'm sorry, knocked everything down. And I've also got a few really nice Aussie presses. So this is the Aussie press of In Through the Outdoor. Very pleasant. It is too. I've always enjoyed the Aussie Physical Graffiti. I think it sounds excellent. Highly, highly recommend. And finally, this. Now, this is maybe the biggest surprise of them all. This is an Aussie press of Led Zeppelin 2. It is SD8236. I think it's basically a mid-70s press. I put this on earlier today just for curiosity, because I don't like to put anything on the list that isn't good. I was very pleasantly surprised by this record. I was like, what? It got me digging in, going, this sounds really, really good. It's really good. It's not quite as good as the Japanese Zepp, but I tell you what, it's not far off. And, on a blind test, you might just get confused. I was very pleasantly surprised. So there's a little concoction of Led Zeppelin. So if any of you went to see Becoming Led Zepp and fancied a little bit of, Page and Plant and John Paul Jones and John Bonham, there's a nice selection there for you to choose from. All right, now we're going to continue on outside of the world of Zepp into some other places. I've got a really nice selection of kind of rock and pop here for you. And I'm going to start here. This is The Young Person's Guide to King Crimson. This is an absolutely pristine condition copy, Japanese first press, of the compilation compiled by Robert Fripp himself of the best from the first 7 King Crimson records. And in fact, it says right here, it's well worth noting, can you see this? It says, a personal selection compiled by Robert Fripp. And what that means is there's a coherence to this choice, because he doesn't just pick the obvious tracks all the time. Sometimes, yes, but not all the time. He picks B-sides and also some kind of offcuts and things that show what they were about during that period. And that is being a pretty spectacular band. And it's beautifully recorded. It also comes with this booklet of photographs and images from the band at the time. Saxophone solos, and obviously Mr. Fripp, Bill Bruford. I've had that compilation for a really long time, and I don't see it very often. In fact, man, it's years since I've seen it. And if you're curious about King Crimson, you know what? It might be all you need, because it really does cherry pick some of the greatest music from such an interesting band. I also it took me a little while to figure it out, but the young person's guide to King Crimson, it's obviously a play on the young person's guide to the orchestra by Benjamin Britten, and that's such a Frippian thing. I'm sure that, well, I suppose he does think of King Crimson as his own personal orchestra, eh? So there's always a little bit of Frippian intrigue. Okay, I'm now going to change tack. There's a lot of changing tack in this list, by the way. This list swings from tether to post. This is the Japanese first press of Diamond Life by Sade. Smooth Operator, Your Love is King, Hang On to Your Love, Frankie's First Affair, When Am I Going to Make a Living? I think side one of this record is peak Sade Adu. It doesn't get much better than that. And I love how warm and synthy and just inviting the whole record is. There's another. In fact, the Kate Bush's debut album is coming. It's a Shortcuts royalty classic, as you all know. But this, as a solo, statement of intent, is just right up there with the best. It won the best album in that year's Brits, which would have been 85. It won it by Street. It was She's Beloved, and yeah, I love that Japanese press as well. It's a delight. Maybe delight isn't quite the right word to describe this next record. This next record is confrontational, and here's what's interesting, by design. This is Black and White by the Stranglers. So this is really a complete post-punk classic. They did everything. Everything is playful on Black and White, including the sleeves. And when you listen to the record, the music follows the same pattern. The opening side, featuring tracks like Tank, Nice and Sleazy, and Sweden, All Quiet on the Eastern Front, have got this raucous, thick, thuggish bass, of course by Jean-Jacques Burnel. I always forget his name, that distorted, thuggish sound that he gets from the bass. But then the second side is much more introspective and kind of political and really, really good, to be frank. It's a really good record. Black and White by the Stranglers. I've always been on the lookout for a UK first press to that record because it had a single with it, with covers of Walk On By and Mean to Me. And yeah, if anyone ever sees that, can you grab it for me? All right. I've got something completely different next. This is kind of wild, but I wonder if there's a fan of this out there in this wild nature of the club. This is an album called GTR, which of course has to be a play on guitar, because look at that sleeve. Does that give you any clue? I wonder if there are some people in the club right now who are going, I know that. I had never seen this before. I had to look it up. It's a sample record. It's a promo. And it also has a poster. And the poster's massive. Are you ready for this? It's going to give away a little bit of what this is. Steve Hackett and Steve Howe from Genesis. And yes, so this was the first and only time that these two creatures of the guitar made an album together. And kind of successful it was too. I think it may even have been the same year as Sade. I think it's 1985, or maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. The hit that came off this was The Heart Rules the World. Steve Howe, Steve Hackett, Jonathan Mover, Max Bacon. Max Bacon. Now there's a name. He was the singer. Anyway, GTR complete with massive poster. For those Steve Hackett and Steve Howe fans, I suspect that's a treat. And that is a promo, not for resale. And I can't see any evidence that it has ever been played. All right. Well, we mentioned Sade earlier. We all know Shortcuts royalty, the Japanese first press of Kate Bush's debut, The Kick Inside, is fantastic. End of. This is a record, though, that I don't think I've ever had before. And so I've had every era of Fleetwood Mac. The eras I like, the eras I don't. And this is an era that I don't know at all. This is the Dominic Kerwin era. This is the Japanese first press of Bare Trees by Fleetwood Mac. You immediately, if you start researching this record, immediately the word underrated just comes spearing to the surface. Transitional record, moving from blues to rock. Dominic Kerwin kind of dominating the set. This was the last record that he featured in with the band. I believe he was fired shortly after its release. I actually don't know why. But I just... I put it on, put the first few tracks on today, and you can hear the Fleetwood Macianness of it, but also it's definitely different. And yeah, I can kind of see why it's a bit of a cult classic. And this whole idea, apparently there's, if you look closely enough, there's someone climbing one of these trees, according to the lore of this record. So there you go. Yeah, Bare Trees, Fleetwood Mac. Well, this next record is notorious for the slavish attention to detail that went into its construction. That is Donald Fagen's The Nightfly. Rumor has it that he drove himself and everyone around him insane. Factually insane, not thematically insane. Multi-Grammy nominated. As good as anything Steely Dan ever did. Deeply, deeply weird. There's no other word for it. It is the strangest album. But that, I think, is part of what has, kind of allowed it to maintain its mythology. I'll put it like that. So this is the Nightfly WJAZ radio station. There you go. The wonderful Nightfly, Japanese first press with Obi. It's hard to find. All right, now going to keep going with things that I've never had before. The Japanese first press of Obscured by Clouds by Pink Floyd. Now, isn't this interesting, Bare Trees? This is also a picture of someone climbing a tree, albeit because it's designed by Hypnosis, that agency that designed all of Floyd's covers at this time. It's not clear, is it? I guess that's the point. Obscured by Clouds being the point. So this, the circular cutoffs indicating the Japanese first press. It's in really lovely condition. This record, of course, it loses its place in history because it's stuck between Metal and Dark Side of the Moon. But the fact of the matter is you don't get to Dark Side of the Moon without Obscured by Clouds. And Pink Floyd don't get to be the juggernaut in the US that they obviously became without some of the tracks on this record becoming popular in the US. And Free 4, I think, probably being the first off the rank that really kind of started to get some US radio play. I think that we've used this word underrated a few times in tonight's descriptions, but I suspect Obscured by Clouds might well be. And you can really hear the band grappling with their studio equipment, which really can't cope with what they wanted to do. All right, I've got a couple more newbies, and then I'm going to quickly flick through some shortcut classics. How about this? Steppenwolf 7. This is the incredible package that is Steppenwolf at the height of their powers. Look at this back sleeve. I think this is great. Look at that. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic first press, hard cardboard, complete with inner. Steppenwolf 7. Kind of, I don't know if you can think of, I guess early Steppenwolf with Born to Be Wild, etc. is the kind of, I guess, the touch point for most people. But they continued to be huge. And songs on this record like Snowblind Friend, etc., they're as good a hard rocker as I've heard. The Pusher, I don't know. It's kind of fun. Maybe there's another Steppenwolf fan out there. All right, I've got one greatest hits for you. This is the Steve Miller Band, 1974 to 1978. This is Swingtown, Jungle Love, Take the Money and Run, Serenade, The Joker, Fly Like an Eagle, Jet Dance. It's got them all. And it's a really cool package as well. Lovely condition. Haven't had this before either. First time. The Steve Miller Band, greatest hits, 74 to 78. And then I did mention that I've got a few final kind of shortcuts classics. I know many of you have Goat's Head Soup, the follow-up to the Stones' Exile on Main Street. Fantastic record, lovely sounding rock and roll. I have an early hard cardboard gatefold of Beatles for Sale. Really lovely punchy sound on that one. I have maybe one of the most popular records in the history of shortcuts. This is Carole King's Tapestry, complete with Obi. And finally, I have a quadraphonic first press of Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. All right, there you have the Led Zeppelin dominated classic rock and pop list. If you liked this video, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me I'm a sham if you need to, or say something nice, which I prefer for obvious reasons. But like, subscribe. If you would like to receive the price list, because all of those records are going to be for sale this week, 9 o'clock Sydney time, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com, and I will add you to the price list. Thank you so much. Bye.